All right, today we're live, day 391, and I just got sent a couple of deals, creative finance deals, and every once in a while, every maybe 2 to 3 weeks, we analyze a creative finance deal. So I want to stay fresh on this, and just to make sure anyone that's new to the channel also understands how you look at a creative finance deal. Now, this deal is a subject to deal. This means that you are buying a property, you are taking over the deed, right? And you are taking over the payments on the underlying loan, okay? You're not taking out another loan to pay off the prior loan, blah, blah, blah. Because in that situation, guess who makes money? On the banks. This scenario allows you to take over the payments. Usually it's because one, it's at a more favorable interest rate. So 5.62 is probably about a point and a half lower than what your market interest rate might look like for a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loan. So 5.62 isn't bad, but let's see if it's going to be a deal, quote unquote, right? Again, this is not an investment advice. We're not soliciting any investments on this call. We're simply just going through the process, going through the reps, understanding what each step of a process or a deal analysis looks like. All right. So this property, 399 Whitfield Drive. Let's see. I think I pulled it up, right? No, I didn't pull it up. Let me pull this up on Redfin. This is a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, still available for $265. What are they selling it for? They're selling for $272. So guess what? On a creative finance deal, they're getting more, technically, for their home than what they're even listing it for, $272. All right, so let's look at this. I mean, this looks pretty decent. I mean, I might set aside some money for like half the square footage to paint the place, just in case these were photos taken when the buyer bought it and not recent photos, because if they're living in it. So they bought it using a VA loan in 2022, right? Just subtracting 2 years. So they probably bought it to live in as a rental. Now, usually with VA loans, they don't really have to put any amount of down payment down because it's insured by the federal government. So that's why you can get and buy a home with such favorable terms. Now, the problem is if you were to go sell this property now after interest rate has gone up so high, this price that they bought it for is no longer quote unquote affordable, because now with the high interest rates, some people can't afford to buy this home for here. And this is how I kind of quickly brought this deal, right? When I see that the long-term rental rent, that the wholesaler, right? Generally, that's someone that's trying to pitch the property in the best light possible because they got to sell the property or sell their contract to the property. And you can see that it's already below the total monthly payment of the principal, interest, tax, and insurance of 2026. So you already know as a long-term rental, this is not going to cash flow. And I don't know about you, but I'm not in business of losing money every single month just to kind of hold on to a property. So that's not going to work for me. Okay. Now, this property, let's see, 2026. Let's go ahead and plug in some of these details here. This purchase price is $272. So just like that, I ruined out the deal. But let's go ahead and keep going. Let's assume that my rehab calculator, I'm going to set aside $1,500 for the roof. I got $500 for the landscaping. This property is 1,428 square feet. So I'm going to do 1,420 just for the painting. I'm going to delete everything else because I'm assuming that's not relevant for this property. I'll just replace the 3 toilets with high pressure flush toilets so I don't have any clogged toilet calls. And now I am at 9161. That's good enough. All right. So what's my rent? If I go to affordablehousing.com and I go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in a bedroom count, the number you're going to care most about here is this number right here, where it says for 25 units within a 0.3 mile radius, average rent is $1,738. So I do $1,738. Guess what? That's even lower than the $1,900 that the wholesaler was disclosing here, right? The wholesaler was saying the rent will be $1,960. So this gives me more confidence that this property is not going to cash flow. But let's finish going through the details so you guys can have the practice of how to analyze the deal, right? Because the process is still the same thing, okay? Now, the first thing I need to do is now I'm going to plug in my entry fee. The entry fee is the cost that you have to incur to buy the property and own it afterwards. Now, there is a $10,326 cash to seller, 10,326. There's a $10,000 assignment fee. I calculated the closing cost is 2.5%. And I calculated that there would be about $9,000 of renovations. Even if you don't do it right away, you should set that aside anyways, just in case if anything happens. All right. So my loan is going to be right here. The existing loan amount is 251,674. Interest rate is 5.62. This is going to mature in 52. So it's going to be, the original date is going to be 9/1/22, just backing into 30 years out of that. 10-year balloon. So that means it's all going to be due or needs to be paid off in 10 years. Don't love that, but it is what it is. Better than a 7-year or 5-year balloon. And now I need to go and zero out this part because there's no secondary loan. So make sure that's a 0. And now I have to go to my property taxes and equals to my total payment of 2,026 minus my principal portion of a subject to loan that I'm taking over payments for, minus the interest portion. That gives me $578, which is what is being set aside for taxes and insurance currently. Now, when you turn this into an investment property, chances are your premium is going to go up because you're now turning it from a primary residence property, because it was bought using a VA loan, to an investment property. And typically, insurance companies view that as a riskier asset. I set aside 10% of my rents every single month for maintenance. This is for things such as my roof replacement, my HVAC, my water heater that needs to get replaced in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? This money doesn't belong to you. So please set aside this money in a bank account so that you know that you don't need to do it, that you don't have to worry about it, and that you have a reserve being set up every single month, because honestly, this money really doesn't belong to you. So don't overestimate your profitability because you underestimate your expenses. Don't be that person that gets a $17,000 repair bill in 100 months from now and then realize this $173 that you were making every single month just vanished because it never belonged to you anyways. You know you're going to have to do maintenance on a home. It's a real breathing asset. You got to take care of it. All right, I got 10% set aside for property management. I got 5% set aside for vacancy. So this property, if you were to rent this out property as a 3-bedroom for $1,738, I mean, you'd be negative cash flow of $773 a month. That's a negative 26% return, just rounding here. Assuming you bought it for $272,000 with a $9,200 rehab. I was assuming your down payment was 10K and your mortgage interest rate was 5.62. So that tells me that this is not a deal. The whole reason I went through the whole exercise so that you can just see how the numbers flowed out, right? I already knew from the moment that I saw the PIT was 2026 and I saw that the market was 1738, that told me this was not going to be worth my time. And that's going to be an important skill for you to think about developing, because how do you avoid burnout? Well, burnout comes from doing a ton of work for no return on your efforts. Same concept here. Don't be that person analyzing and overanalyzing every single work if you don't think it's worth your time. So please think through it. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Friday. I hope you all have some quality time with your family and friends this weekend. That's what life is all about. Hope you all have a great night. Thank you so much for being part of live. Thank you for being part of day 391. I'll see you all again tomorrow for day 392. Have a good one, everybody. Stay consistent.